Alright, so now I'm back with part 3 of my PS2 collection. Before I start, I wanted to briefly mention a couple of things. Um, I am so sorry for the wait. There was just a lot of stuff going on in my life that I don't really want to disclose in public. But just know that a lot of stuff's been going on and I haven't really had much time to get to this video. And also another thing is, in part 2 of my collection video, I looked over on what games I covered and realized that I ended up showing the same game from the first part in the second part a few times, like Star Wars Battlefront 2 and Tony Hawk's not Tony Hawk's here for Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I don't know why I ended up showing them. I guess because I just didn't really keep track. So yeah, I am aware I made a bit of a mistake, and so to remedy this issue, I have looked over my videos and put together everything that I've covered so that I'm not losing track of everything and I'm not totally confused on what I've covered and what not. So, anyways, enough talking. Let's get to the games. So, next game I have is Shadow of the Colossus. I don't know if I showed that. I'm now second guessing myself again. No, I didn't show that. Anyways, so I said in the previous video that I needed to be in the right mood to play a game like this or Ico. Mainly just because I don't want to end up just hating the game and not understanding it for what it is. So, because I've been hearing a lot of good things about these games, and I want to be able to give them their proper due, so that I'm not just blindly hating them if I end up just because of the games they are. Anyways, next I have Dead to Rights, which, as of this video, I am currently playing through right now. It's a pretty solid third-person shooter from Namco. However, the controls are kind of awkward. It feels they're kind of in strange places, and you can't really remap them to your liking. So it's just you're kind of stuck with the default controls. But the game is still really fun, though. I did enjoy the gunfights. I enjoyed the mini games. Yeah, it's really good. I enjoyed it, and I'm definitely going to try and finish it soon. Fatal Frame 2, Crimson Butterfly. I played the first one quite a bit and I loved it, but I haven't played the second one yet. Definitely need to give it a try. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. I really enjoyed this game. Probably my favorite Prince of Persia game. Onimusha Warlords. I mentioned in the first part that I showed Onimusha 3, but I never played it. However, I have played this one, and I've played Onimusha 2. And this is a pretty decent game. It hasn't aged that well. It kind of relies on the fixed camera angles like Resident Evil, but it's fun, though. I enjoyed it. It's a pretty solid game. Way of the Samurai 2. In the previous video I showed I had the first game. This one I actually haven't played it, but I'm hoping it's actually better than the first game. Interestingly enough, this one was actually done by Capcom, while the first game was developed by, or at least published by BAM. Interesting. Mortal Kombat Deception. I do agree this is the best entry in the series, but it isn't my personal favorite. My favorite has to be Deadly Alliance on the PS2. But this is still a great game. I've had a lot of fun playing it, and I especially love the chess combat mode. It's so freaking cool. And the puzzle combat's pretty neat. Wheel of Fortune. As I've stated before, I love game show I love game shows, and Wheel of Fortune just happens to be one of my favorite game shows. I know it's like one of the most common, one of the most world-renowned game shows. It's like the most popular, but hey, I still love Wheel of Fortune. And this is actually not a half-bad port, not a half-bad conversion of the game, so yeah. Tony Hawk's Underground, which I've actually finished, and I really enjoyed it. Probably my favorite game in the series. I've had a lot of fun with it. Great soundtrack, great gameplay. Still looks really good for a PS2 game. And love the part creation mode, and character creation. It's just, really, there isn't much about this game that I don't like. It's great. And Tony Hawk's Underground 2, which is still pretty good, although I do prefer the first one a little bit more, but the second one does have a lot of extra goodies, so that's pretty sweet. SOCOM 3, which I haven't really played yet. Growlancer Generations. I think I actually did show this in the previous video. You know what? Yeah, I did. Sorry about that. Phantom Brave. I haven't really played this one yet, but it's done by the same guys that did the Disguise series, so I'm definitely interested in it. Rainbow Six Lockdown. I've played a lot of the Rainbow Six games, but this is the only one I haven't really played. I really need to get around to it. Armored Core 3. Also haven't played it yet. Motocross Mania 3. I actually enjoyed this game. It's not that great. I mean, the graphics are pretty terrible, and the controls can get a little wonky at times, and the music is not that good, but it's still fun. I really enjoyed it. It kind of reminds me of Road Rash. The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King. Probably one of the best movie-based games I've ever played. It's so much fun. I would argue even better than Two Towers. This one's not MK Armageddon. This is Leisure Suit Larry, Magna Cum Laude. I'm not going to be talking about that one very much. Ford Racing 3. This is basically a budget racer, which I used to love when I was younger, but playing it now, it's really not that good, honestly. The controls are really sluggish, and they feel heavy. Cars don't really turn when they're supposed to, and oftentimes you can end up slamming into walls quite often. Like, unintentionally. Like, even if you hit the brakes and try to drift, you still, you can still easily crash into walls, and that's not fun. It's not a terrible game. It's okay. It's just a budget racer, and it really shows. Tony Hawk's American Wasteland. I would say this is the last really good Tony Hawk game. Before Neversoft kind of just started running on fumes with the next two games, Proving Ground and Project 8. They didn't do Downhill Jam, so I didn't include that. But I really enjoyed this game. It was a lot of fun. However, thankfully, this series has gotten back on track with the Pro Skater 1 and 2 remakes, and I'm only hoping that the series does get better. I don't know, although I'm not really sure about what the future holds for the series, considering Vicarious Visions got bought out, unfortunately, so who knows what's going to happen. Rumble Racing. This one is a lot of fun. It's a stunt racer game. It is actually a sequel to a spiritual successor to NASCAR Rumble. It's done by the same company, so yeah, pretty fun game. Lord of the Rings: The Third Age. It's basically a turn-based RPG in the same vein of Final Fantasy. And I would love to play it. Unfortunately, though, my disc doesn't even work, so I can't play it. Kengo Master of Bushido. This was one of the most confusing games I've ever played. Like, not the game itself necessarily, but my thoughts on it are pretty mixed. On one hand, I do like the more I do like the fighting mechanics. They're meant to be more realistic, kind of like Bushido Blade. And from what I heard, it's like a spiritual successor, but this has nothing on Bushido Blade. But unfortunately, I do find that the controls are kind of awkward here compared to Bushido Blade, which I think Bushido Blade had some very solid controls. This one just feels really awkward, kind of stiff, and it's like once you get a feel for it, it can be kind of fun, but the fights tend to drag on for a long time, and it gets really annoying. And also the tournament mode is not very enjoyable because you can just easily kill all your enemy in like one slash, and all you gotta do is just use the same strong slash and it dies. It's just, I don't know. I have seriously mixed feelings on this game. Demon's Stone. From what I've played, it's a pretty solid action RPG. Can't say much about it. Jak 3. I really enjoyed this game, and I've had more fun playing it than the other games in the series, but they're all still great. But Jak 3, though, easily my favorite entry. Reckless, the Yakuza missions. This is a lot different from the Xbox version, so I've come to find out. But I didn't hate it. I thought it was actually a pretty fun, mission-based driving game where you're supposed to take out the Yakuza. So, yeah. Onimusha 2, Samurai's Destiny. I do think this plays a little bit better than the first game, but it's still very similar to the Resident Evil games in terms of its gameplay style, with the tank controls and all that, the fixed camera angles. Ghost Recon 2. I think this game is alright. It's a decent tactical shooter, but as I've stated before, I am absolute trash at these kinds of games, except for Rainbow Six, and Splinter Cell, and Siphon Filter. Enthusia Professional Racing. It's kind of fun, actually. It's basically... It's developed by Konami, and it actually plays a lot like the Gran Turismo games. It's basically Konami's answer to Gran Turismo, or maybe to an extent Forza Motorsport. I don't know, but it's definitely a more realistic racing game. Pretty good. Need for Speed Most Wanted, probably my favorite entry in the series. I absolutely adore this game. So much fun. Soul Calibur 2. I wasted countless hours playing this. It is such a great fighting game. I honestly can't tell you how many hours I wasted, but so much fun, though. Soul Reaver 2. I've never played the first game, but I've heard it's really good. From what I've played the second one, it's alright, but not anything spectacular. I don't really know what else to say about it, honestly. SOCOM U.S. Navy SEALs Combined Assault. That's a pretty good game, but again, I suck at these kinds of games. Air Force Delta Strike. This one's alright, but it has a few problems that really hinder this game. One of the biggest issues this game suffers from is the voice acting. Like, it's not terrible, but the real issue is the voice direction, because characters just continuously keep talking over each other, and it's really annoying. It gets obnoxious quite fast, and it's hell on the senses. Don't really know what they were thinking with that. It's just really weird. But the gameplay is still fun, at the very least. It's just, would have liked it better if the voice acting wasn't so constantly... if there wasn't so much constant clipping in the voices, and everyone wasn't, like, constantly talking over each other, it gets really annoying, and it's a bit distracting. Power Drome. This one's actually really fun. I enjoy this one quite a bit. Not bad for a game that's, like, only $1. It's a pretty cheap game, but shockingly, full with content and a lot of fun. Disgaea Hour of Darkness. I absolutely love this game. This is such a hilarious Very comical, tactical RPG. So good. Devil May Cry, the first game. I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I liked it. I actually finished it too. Stacked, which is a poker game. And I actually enjoyed this one. This is the only poker game I actually will ever need, honestly. I actually do love the game. I actually do love poker. But Stacked is honestly the only poker game I'll ever really want or need. King of Fighters 2006, which is otherwise known as Maximum Impact 2 elsewhere. I'd say this is a much better game than the previous entry, but the voice acting is pretty hit or miss. However, the gameplay feels much smoother. It's a lot more fun to play, and there's a lot of extra content here, so yeah, it's pretty good. Kingdom Hearts. I enjoyed this one, but it definitely has not aged the greatest. The controls feel kind of awkward and clunky. And I'm not really a fan of the camera controls either. But the game is still fun to play, and it's at least simple in its story, and the boss fights are, for the most part, pretty strong, except for Dragon Maleficent. I cannot stand that fight. Extremely frustrating. ATV Off-Road Fury 4. I haven't really played this one very much, although I do plan on it. Winback Covert Operations. This was pretty decent. Decent little third-person shooter for the system. The controls are kind of weird. It feels a bit awkward. But once you get used to it, it can be really fun. The pistol is your best friend. Use it often because you'll run out of bullets easily on other weapons, so definitely use the pistol quite often. But the music is really good. The game still looks pretty good for 2001. And the gunplay can be pretty satisfying. However, the voice acting is terrible. It's actually one of the worst I've ever heard on the PS2. And, well, like I said, the controls are pretty awkward. But, not a bad game. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. I played this one a lot, as well as Pro Skater 4 a lot. It's such a great skating game. The Simpsons Road Rage. I enjoyed this one quite a lot as well. The quotes do get pretty repetitive after a while, and kind of annoying, honestly. But still fun, though. Even if it is a ripoff of Crazy Taxi. MDK2 Armageddon. I love the first game, but the second game, I don't know, it wasn't really clicking with me. I don't know why, it's just, for some reason I couldn't get into this one. Maybe I just didn't really like how it controlled. I don't know, I need to give the game a better shot. Burnout, the first one, really isn't that great anymore, since the later ones have basically just blown it out of the water. The first one just plays like a generic arcade racer. ATV Off-Road Fury 2. It does improve upon the first one quite a lot, but it still has some of the same stuff the first one does have, which isn't a bad thing. But the second one is great. I actually really enjoy this one. Echo the Dolphin, Defender of the Future. I have not played this one yet. Sonic Heroes. This is easily the worst version to play. In comparison to the Xbox and the GameCube versions, this one's just not fun to play on PS2. It's got... The game feels kind of awkward to play on PS2, but that's not the only issue. The frame rate is pretty awful. Like, it runs at it runs at 30 frames per second mostly, which is fine, but then the frame rate drops are pretty constant, and it has quite a lot of glitches and bugs. Not only that, loading times are longer than they really need to be. And for some reason, it just feels it just feels worse to play on there than it does on other versions, which is a real shame because Sonic Heroes, in my opinion, is actually a pretty underrated game otherwise, just that the PS2 version is not very good. Disgaea 2, Cursed Memories. I played this one a little bit, and from what I've played, it's a pretty fun game, although I do need to get more into it. Medal of Honor Frontline. A decent FPS game. Not really my favorite entry in the series, though. That goes to Rising Sun. Red Faction. This is a really fun game, but holy shit, it is hard as hell. It took me a few days to finish this one, because I actually kind of just played it non-stop for a few days, consecutively, trying to finish it. But holy crap, it is pretty damn difficult, especially when you're saving somewhere and you're really trying not to get hurt. Because you can actually save everywhere you want to, but your health and weapon count remain exactly how you left it before you left the game. Still, though, I do recommend it. It's a pretty fun game. Even though it doesn't look all that great, but it's still fun. Street Fighter EX3. Not a bad game, pretty decent. Not the best entry in the series, but far from the worst, I would say. Call of Duty 3. I would probably say it's one of the best World War II COD games. Although World at War, in my opinion, is definitely the best one. But 3 is still pretty fun, though. Lego Star Wars 2. This was a lot of fun to play. Probably one of my favorite Lego games. Shinobi. Solid game and a ton of fun. Probably one of the most underrated entries in the Shinobi series. I freaking love this game. Dragon Ball Z Budokai. It's alright. Not much else to say. It's just kind of eh. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. This one was actually the most fun I've had with the 3D Mortal Kombat games. I know a lot of people don't really like this one as much as Deception, but I still had a lot of fun playing it, and I still enjoy it. Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII, or Final Fantasy VII Dirge of Cerberus. I actually don't get the hate for this game. I thought it was pretty fun. The story isn't really anything to write home about, I will admit, but I thought the gameplay was a ton of fun. It was just really fun playing as Vincent, going around killing shit. I don't know. I thought it was fun, even if it deviated from the action RPG style or the turn-based style. I was still okay with it. Armored Core 2. This was alright. This is a pretty fun game. I haven't played this one a ton, but from what I have played of it, it was a pretty solid game, although the controls do feel a bit weird at first. Once you get used to it, it's pretty enjoyable. Odin Sphere. Developed by Vanillaware, the same guys behind, what was it, Princess Crown? I really enjoyed this game. This was a ton of fun to play, especially considering it took on a bit of a different kind of style compared to other RPGs. 13. This is a pretty fun first-person shooter. I do like the comic book look. It's pretty cool. I heard there was a remake of this game that got released, but I've heard it was pretty damn bad. Like, they completely removed the comic book style, which was the defining factor of 13, but I don't know. Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. Probably one of my favorite PS2 games. I had a lot of fun with this one. I love the story, and I love the gameplay. It's just... I love the first one as well, but the second one just improves upon it in so many ways. It's great. Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2. I really enjoyed this one a lot as well. I do prefer the first one a little bit more, but the second game is still pretty damn good. Sub-Rebellion. I actually like this game. It's a pretty solid game. It's actually published by IREM, who did the ports of Super R-Type, who did Super R-Type on the Super Nintendo, and some other games that I can't really remember at the moment, but pretty fun game, though. It's actually underrated. Not many people know about this one. So it's basically a submarine. It's a third-person submarine action game where you're trying to take out boats and other submarines and stuff like that. It's pretty fun. Xenosaga. First one. I haven't really played this yet. Midway Arcade Treasures 2, which contains games like Rampage World Tour, Primal Rage, Gauntlet 2, Narc, MK2 and 3, and Total Carnage. There are some great games here, but then there's also some really, really shitty games here, like Pit Fighter. I'm not a fan of it, honestly. Spy Hunter 2 is pretty damn bad. And Wizard of War is not very fun. Timber. But it does have some really solid games. It's just that there's also quite a few crappy ones as well. I think their selection could have been much better. Guilty Gear X2. I honestly really enjoyed this game. I had a lot of fun playing this. One of my favorite entries in the series. Although Accent Core is an improved version of it, and it is a little better. Siphon Filter: The Omega Strain. I've actually been recently playing through the Siphon Filter games. I finished the first two just recently. In fact, I actually finished the second game last week. I'm going to be moving on to the third game real soon. Then I'll move on to this. I have actually played this game before, but from what I remember playing, it was pretty damn frustrating. Couldn't even get past the first level. Although I have become more of a seasoned Siphon Filter player, so I'm probably going to have less of a frustrating time with this one than I did before. But from what I played, it was pretty alright. But the best Siphon Filter game, in my opinion, easily has to be Entry 2. Bujingai: The Forsaken City, which is done by Taito, who did Bust a Move and Space Invaders. I'm definitely curious to see how this one plays. Unfortunately, though, I don't think my disc even works. I tried to play this one. MotorStorm Arctic Edge. I do prefer the PS3 games a little bit more. This is kind of weird seeing a PS2 MotorStorm game. Seeing a MotorStorm game on PS2, but the game is still pretty good, though. I enjoyed it. Contra Shattered Soldier. This game is really good. Probably my favorite entry in the series. I adore this game. And the original Samurai Warriors, which is a pretty solid game. It's basically Dynasty Warriors with Samurai. All I really gotta say about it. Alright. Next I have Vampire Knights, which has nothing to do with the anime. It's a light gun shooter, and of course, because of that, it is compatible with the GunCon 2, but it also is compatible with the GunCon 1, which is kind of cool. But this is a pretty fun game. I enjoyed this quite a bit. Kind of reminds me of Time Crisis, but with vampires. I think that's probably what they were going for. Tetris Worlds. This was probably the first Tetris game I ever played, and I still, to this day, really enjoy it. It's just a great puzzle game. I love me some puzzle games. They're great relaxation games. Cabela's Big Game Hunter. This was alright. Don't have much else to say about it. Spy Hunter. This is a pretty fun game. I actually enjoyed this one. It kind of reminds me of the James Bond movies, where your car is equipped with guns and all that. Good stuff. The King of Route 66, which from what I hear is actually a sequel to American Pro Trucker 18-Wheeler, which I've heard is really fun. And this one I really enjoyed. It was a lot of fun to play. I will admit though, the AI is pretty damn aggressive, like disgustingly so. But getting past that though, I still think this is a really fun game. Tribes Aerial Assault. I used to play this a lot when I was younger. I thought it was a pretty fun shooter game. Going back to this now, I still think it's pretty fun. Conflict Desert Storm. I haven't really played this one. Hitman 2 Solemn Assassin. This is a pretty good game. Kingdom Hearts 2, which I played this one a ton. Really enjoyed this game. Easily my favorite entry in the series. I love the combat. I love the gameplay. I know the story may be convoluted for some, but I actually didn't really mind it that much. I thought it was pretty interesting. But yeah, so damn good. Pac-Man World 2, a really solid platformer. Had a lot of fun playing this one. Prince of Persia Warrior Within. This was alright, but I wasn't really the biggest fan of the edgier take on this game. Like, I don't mind it was more darker than the previous entry, but I feel like this was a bit too much of a sharp departure from the tone of the previous entry. Like, it felt like the drop. It felt like the tone was too sudden. Like, it feels like the game is trying way too hard to be edgy and cool and dark. Especially when when you get the prince calling one of the bosses a bitch, which is just really, it's so stupid. Like, what the hell? Are you serious? It's like, doesn't necessarily make it cool. And also, like, I love the soundtrack, but it really doesn't fit a game like this. I don't know, I just think this game was trying way too hard to be dark. Thankfully, the Two Thrones, from what I remember, actually balanced it. Project Snowblind. I actually had a lot of fun playing this. It was a pretty good first-person shooter. It's developed by Crystal Dynamics, who did the Gex and Tomb Raider series, so yeah, pretty good. Finding Nemo. This one's not bad. It's actually a halfway decent movie-based game. King of Fighters Maximum Impact is not really that great. It's all right, but nowhere near as good as the second game. Sly 3, Honor Among Thieves. I beat this game several times. I wasted countless hours on this when I was younger. I still love it to this day. Very fun. Soul Calibur 3. I didn't like it quite as much as the second game, but 3 is still pretty damn good, though. Jade Cocoon 2. I haven't really played this yet. Same with La Pucelle Tactics. Really do need to play them, though. Stuntman, which is honestly a really solid game, but also very frustrating. Like, holy shit. I actually, like the game kind of tries to force you to play extremely, like, it basically forces you to play extremely accurately, which is fine. It's just that it kind of makes you want to become a little too precise, and you're bound to make a lot of mistakes in the game because the car or you drive is kind of heavy, and it can be really frustrating, and the loading times just are way too long. And that's not really a good thing when you're trying to get through these stages as fast as you can. So, yeah. But even with these issues, I still enjoyed it. It's a fun game, but it could have been even better with better controls. Kill Switch. I really enjoyed this. This is a third-person cover-based shooter for the system. One of the first games to utilize the cover system as its core gameplay aspect, which is pretty cool. And last game I'm going to show before I end this video is Extreme G3. It's a decent game, nothing mind-blowing though, but it's an alright futuristic motorcycle racer. And that's all I'm going to show for part 3 of my PS2 collection. I didn't take as long talking about the games in this video, and that's simply because I just kind of wanted to get the rest of things out of the way, and not just bug you guys with too much drivel about each game. So I just wanted to pick up the pace. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see y'all next time. Take care.